topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Barry G. Fowler, EA, brings you Tax Talk for You right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. As an enrolled agent and a national leader in tax resolution, as well as trucker, bookkeeping, and tax planning with over 30 years of experience, Barry will break down taxes, bookkeeping, tax planning, and tax relief for individuals and businesses just like you. So let's have some Tax Talk for You with your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, welcome. It's great to be back here on a Monday after a holiday. It seemed like it's been a long time since we've been here. I know last week we had to do a rerun. Hopefully this week we got the news out that we're going to be talking to owner-operators, truck drivers out there on the road, trucking and taxes. I write for Landline Magazine, OOIDA, Owner Operator Independent Drivers Association. I watch everything that goes on, not only with that association, but the American Trucking Association and other associations around the country, because they're doing so much to try to help, truck drivers out there. So we got to be thankful for truckers. We got to be thankful for some of the associations that do represent truckers, to Congress, the Department of Transportation, all these people out there that are representing you as an owner operator out there to help the trucking industry. One of the nice things that came out within the last month was, you got to be able to speak and read English. And then, they've been finding a lot of illegals driving trucks as well. So maybe getting some of this off there will help freight rates and everything for the truckers that are out there competing with people that shouldn't be on the road or driving these rates insanely down. And that maybe we'll be able to increase the load rates for you to be able to move, the goods across the country. That would be a really nice thing to do. So, in watching some of these things that are going on, and we were watching a lot of things with OOIDA and then Landline Magazine, they're collecting and analyzing, a lot of data that comes through, and, trying to make this data worth a lot more for you as an owner operator out there. And, what kind of matters is, the rates that you're seeing out there, especially, October. Now we're, finishing November. They'll have new reports coming out here for November here shortly. You're looking at reefer spot rates. They were up a little bit in October, which kind of, changed the trend of where they were. But even that slightly higher wasn't enough to, in my opinion, to cover the cost of operating a truck and keeping the trucks on the roads as an owner operator. And so, getting those rates to come up would be a great thing, in the trucking industry. When they're looking at, the rates for flatbeds and stuff, they declined and remained relatively flat. So, it's a little bit of a decline in October, maybe 1 or 2 cents. Not that big of a deal, but it was still a decline. It should have been increasing these rates. Now we hope getting English as, you've got to be able to be able to speak it and got to be able to read it, getting that in there, and getting those truckers off the road might help a little bit. Getting rid of the illegals driving trucks should help a little bit. And let's see what happens in November and December. Hopefully we can get the rates to come up a little bit, especially as we're moving closer and closer to the new year. So you can see, having this information out there is really helpful for you as a truck driver. We're looking at trends. In American Trucking Association, looked at 2024, and trucks moved 11.27 billion tons of freight in 24, but that was down from the 11.41 billion tons hauled the previous year. Revenues were down in 24 versus 23. It was 906 billion versus, a little over 1 trillion. So, big numbers, but you got to remember that, this is, spread across, all the owner operators in the trucking industry across the board. So, sometimes you're going to feel it a lot harder as an owner operator than some of these other companies are going to feel it as well. And when these other companies are doing, a lot more trucks out there and they're pushing rates down, it is hurting the individual owner operator out there. Now, as an owner operator, you've got to be watching your expenses. Now, that's where companies like our company, Trucker Tax Tools, go to truckertaxtools.com, helps you watch your expenses by giving you great bookkeeping, running a profit maximizer, tax minimizer, things to do to help increase your cash flow and what cash you keep yourself for your business. Because at the end of the day, it's how do we keep more money for ourselves as a business owner than it is how much should I be paying in taxes? Paying taxes is, yes, a part of life, but paying taxes also is a burden on cash, meaning that you have got to pay this cash out, whether it's estimated tax payments, whether you pay the tax April 15th, or whether you're paying past tax problems and you've got debt, and now you're paying not just the tax, but you're paying penalties and interest as well. So the goal is always to make sure that you're staying in compliance, but not paying the maximum amount of tax. It's paying the minimum amount of tax that is allowed by law. So it's finding every single expense. Now, is that good and bad? Yes, it is good and bad. The good news is if we can find every single expense that relates to your business, it's ordinary and necessary business expenses, it reduces your tax burden. Now, it also reduces your net income. So if you're going after loans for like a home loan, new mortgage or something, it's going to show that, hey, you made less money. So, it does impact, different portions of your life. But that being said, if you can save on taxes, now we're not just talking about federal income tax, we're talking about state income tax. And then we're also talking about Social Security and Medicare taxes. So it's mitigating as much of the tax that you can in the best way possible. Now, when you're an owner operator and you're a new owner operator, a lot of times you're not getting the services or the consulting, the different information that you need to reduce these taxes. Now, I'm going to tell you, don't be afraid. You should be calling Trucker Tax Tools at 877-966-2477. Again, 877-966-2477. And if you've seen our billboard over off of Interstate 12 over near, I think it's Hammond, Louisiana, we had a couple of billboards out there, hey, we're offering really great discounted fees. So if you've seen our billboard, hey, connect with us at Facebook. hey, send us a message over there. And if you need great bookkeeping for truckers, owner operators out there, hey, let us know. We had some great discounted prices. We can get you started at a very low cost. In some cases, we're able to reduce a lot of our costs on getting back bookkeeping caught up for the year as well. And it's a great way to get started. And the best part is getting started right now and getting everything up to date. We can help find every other business expense out there in 2025 to reduce that burden of that federal income tax, state income tax, Social Security and Medicare, all those things. And then we're going to look at consulting and deciding, hey, how should your business also be structured to help you down the road to gather yourself to make sure that you're paying the least amount of taxes that are allowed by law, because that's the name of the game. So we're working doing tax planning right now with a lot of our clients. We've gone through a majority of them. We've got a whole group that we've got to get through this week before I take a little bit of vacation. We need a little breather so that we can get ready for next year and gear up for tax season ourselves and year end. But we need to get you in and get started as soon as possible. Because that's important to us. It should be important to you. And it's important that we get the tax planning done so that our clients know approximately what they're going to owe, what they should be coming up with, or maybe what other strategies they need to be employing right now to reduce the amount of taxes that they're going to be having come April 15th, or if they haven't made all their estimated tax payments, get your estimated tax payments in and go from there. Hey, one of the things, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about American Trucking Association's freight forecast going forward, and what you can do, what we need to do for year-end taxes. And we'll do that right after this break.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by, as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. If you owe the IRS or are going through an IRS audit, don't go at it alone. Call Taxation Solutions Tax Relief at 888-930-1016. We are your solution for IRS debts, audits, back taxes, garnishments, liens, and levies. Whether you're an individual or business, you need a solution and a strong, aggressive tax resolution. Don't let the IRS walk all over you. Stop the IRS now. Call 888-930-1016 or go to taxationsolutions.net now for a free, no obligation consultation. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Here at Tax Talk for You, we got a lot to be thankful for. And part of one of my shows, I usually, talk about how, we should be thankful and what we're thankful for as a group. I am thankful for my family, for God, for y'all listening, and for our clients at Trucker Tax Tools and Taxation Solutions, Tax Relief. The people that put their trust into us, we appreciate them. We appreciate all the staff at W4CY Radio and what they do for us, here at Tax Talk for You. If you got questions, get the questions in to us so we can answer the questions for you and try to help you in your business grow, minimize tax, and use the tax code to your advantage, just like every rich person does, every smart business person does. You got to have somebody on your side. You don't have time to read the thousands of pages of tax code. That's why you've got to have a trusted expert like myself and the people at Trucker Tax Tools and Taxation Solutions Tax Relief. We were talking about tax forecasts or trucking forecasts going out into next year and beyond. American Trucking Association has their trucking reports out, their forecasts going out. They're actually reporting right now that truck tonnage will rise from estimated 11.27 billion tons to about almost 14 billion tons in 2035. So over the next 10 years, they're seeing a 2 billion ton, more than a 2 billion ton increase in tonnage going out there for truckers. They're estimating the revenue growth from 906 billion to 1.46 trillion. And that accounts for close to 77% of the freight market by the end of that forecast, which ends in 2035. They're also looking at other modes of transportation, and the freight tonnage moved by railroads is going to fall from 10.6% to 9.9% in 2035. They're accounting for most of that's going to be due to declines in coal volume. So, it's one of the things that they're looking at and saying, hey, this is where the growth is going to come from. And this is where it's going to go down. Now you're going to see air cargo, domestic waterborne transportation and pipelines. We're going to see increases in tonnage between 25 and 35, 2025 and 2035. Now we've seen that here in the Texas area because we've seen multiple pipelines coming through in the areas we live, where they're moving natural gas and stuff from Texas, towards the Midwest and stuff through Louisiana. So we're seeing a lot more pipeline activity going out there. So it's going to be a lot more stuff going through the pipelines, and definitely getting freight going that way and moving goods and moving services and goods across the country. Now as an owner operator, what you're really concerned with is what? Your bottom line. How much money did I make? Now, it's one of those things to look at the bottom line and say, how much money did I make? What you're really looking at is, how much money did I keep? Because if you're keeping nothing, all you're doing is making ends meet, and that's it. You're working hard for paying family bills, putting food on the table, making your mortgage payments, taking care of your kids, your husband, your wife, whatever it is that you are taking care of. That's all you're working for. You work day and night, slaving away to pay all these bills, and you're not seeing anything from it. So you've got to find a way to start putting money away. And, that's not, hey, skipping and saying, hey, I'm just not going to file taxes and I'm not going to pay. That's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is preparing to find ways to reduce the tax burden. Now, when you think about it, your bottom line automatically gets hit 15.3% right off the top. If you are an owner or operator reporting on Schedule C, not an S Corp, not a partnership, you're just reporting there as a sole proprietor, right there on Schedule C, it gets hit right off the top of 15.3%. That's Social Security and Medicare tax. Now, it doesn't matter whether you made, 50,000 or you made 100,000, you could hit 15.3% full self-employment taxes. So saving money, reducing your net income, reducing the amount you're getting taxed becomes extremely important for you in business. Because you made $100,000, you're now paying $15,300 in self-employment taxes. That's crazy. especially knowing what we're going to get back from Social Security when we go to retire. You look at how much money you've paid in over the years, and then they're telling you that they're thinking about increasing retirement age. Hey, you want to save Social Security? Put every congressman, every senator, every employee of the federal government right into Social Security and not into federal pension. And we'll see how fast Social Security gets fixed for you and I and everybody else. It's another soapbox for another day. I'm sorry. We're going to get distracted with this, but that is the way to fix Social Security. Because I don't think any king, queen, prince or princess of the federal government should be on any other plan than the plans that we are on. If Obamacare and Social Security is good enough for you and I, it is good enough for every government employee. Now, that being said, back to reducing taxes. See, I can get on that soapbox, and once I get on it, I start running. And I'm sorry, we're trying to reduce stuff for you. And what we've got to do is find ways to do that. So we've got to identify all eligible deductions that you can have in your business. Everything that's ordinary and necessary. Everything that you've got to do to save you money on taxes and reduce that burden right there alone. So, if you could save $10,000 on your net income, that's another $1,530 in your pocket that you have saved in Social Security and Medicare taxes. That's not even talking about the federal income tax rate. That's not even talking about the state income tax rate. That is purely talking about self-employment taxes. So you can see how valuable. If you find $20,000 of expenses that you're not taking, that you should be taking on your business, now we're talking, we saved, $3,060. Well, you're spending the money anyway, but it should be a business expense, but you haven't been taking that business expense. You just cost yourself $3,060. Now you add federal taxes to it, you add state income taxes to it, and now you saved even more money. You might be at $5,000 savings. So if you spend it anyway, and it should relate to business, let's get it over there to business so that you get the proper deductions. Now remember, we're looking for ordinary and necessary business expenses. We're looking for things that you may not have taken, things that somebody else overlooked. We've seen tax preparers overlook things in truckers' taxes because they have no idea what they're doing in the trucking industry for taxes. And when they miss those expenses and they miss those items, it costs you way more than you can ever imagine, especially when they've been doing these taxes for you and they've been doing them wrong for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that number is. That number compounds and it gets worse and worse every single year. Now, we're going to take a short break and then we're going to come back and talk about estimated tax payments, maximizing deductions, and what you should be looking for right after this.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for you. As an owner-operator, you already spend too much time away from your family. Trucker Tax Tools handles all your bookkeeping and taxes no matter what level trucker you are. Life on the road can be taxing, but that doesn't mean that your wallet or time with your family should suffer. Trucker Tax Tools makes your life run smoothly. Go to truckertaxtools.com for a free guide that will give you the tools to never worry about your taxes again. Call Trucker Tax Tools at 877-966-2477 or go to truckertaxtools.com now and let the experts keep you trucking. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
The first things that I wanted to touch on coming back from the break, and then I've got to answer a question from Gabe here. Review your estimated tax payments. Say, make sure you've made them. Those were due April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and then the next one's due January 15th. You want to make sure you're making estimated tax payments to avoid, any penalties with the IRS, and that's interest as well, as long as you've made them based on, 2024's taxes, or you can use actual projections or actual numbers for 2025 if you have those actual numbers each quarter, and making sure you're making the right ones. I hear a lot of people out there say a common recommendation is to set aside 25 to 30% of your net income for estimated tax payments. I agree that you should be setting aside a good chunk of change, and it could be 25 to 30% depending on where you're at in business. It does not mean pay that money into the IRS. It says make the minimum that's required estimated tax payments. And if business is down or net income is down, then we can adjust to actual numbers for your estimated tax payments as well. So you've got to have that good bookkeeping to be able to modify those estimated tax payments as the year goes on, and making sure you're paying in the right amount of money. Now, Gabe asked a real interesting question. We've seen this come up several times. Gabe asked, my CPA who is preparing my taxes told me I could take mileage on my semi-truck and depreciation and actual expenses. Your CPA is absolutely wrong. Maybe check his credentials. Because most CPAs should know this and stuff. So maybe he's not, maybe he's just representing himself that way, or she. Maybe you just think they are, and they're just a tax preparer. You should be taking actual expenses and depreciation on your truck, whether it's 3 or 5 years, or Section 179, or bonus depreciation, depending on when you bought it. We got to look at every one of those options, but you need to get that tax return fixed. And if this is your first year doing it, get last year's tax return fixed now. Hey, give us a call at 877-966-2477. Again, 877-966-2477. And Gabe, we can get those things reviewed and fixed for you as well. Get your bookkeeping right. Get somebody that knows the ins and outs of the trucking industry out there. That being said, you can take mileage like on your personal vehicle when you're using it for business. So if you're running to get parts or supplies for your truck, trailer, those miles can be deducted. If you're going out and discussing business with somebody, or trying to get new business to come in, the meals and entertainment deduction, don't let that be put into travel meals. Keep that separate. So it's meals and entertainment. A lot of times, you're going out and discussing business when you're at home, and you're at a local restaurant. And if you're discussing business and everything, then that meal could be deductible. And it's only 50% deductible, but at least it is deductible, versus travel meals are 80% deductible. But the IRS offers something different for you as an owner operator if you are over the road, meaning you're not coming home every night. If you're coming home every night, your meals or what we're about to discuss isn't going to count for you. Only business meals, meaning when you've taken somebody out to achieve, get more business, talk about business, maybe bring on a partner, maybe bring on a new driver or something like that. Those meals are business meals. But meals while you're working is just like anybody else working a local job. They're not going to be deductible, and you're not going to be able to take per diems because you're not away from home. But if you're an over-the-road owner-operator, one of the biggest deductions that you can take is a per diem. So the IRS allows a per diem per day deduction for meals and incidental expenses while you're away from your tax home. And they changed this rate effective October 1st, 2024, and they went up to a rate of $80 per full day or $40 per half day. So the day that you leave and the day you come home are half days. The days in between are the full days. So if you were to leave on Sunday, that would be a half day, and come back on Friday, that would be a half day. The 4 days in between would be full days. So you would basically get 5 days of $80 is what it comes down to. Now, only 80% of that is deductible. If you were still doing your 2024 taxes, the rate before October 1st, 2024 was $69. And so if you're doing 2024 taxes, you have to make sure you have an accounting of the days from January through the end of September, and then days from October through December, number of days that you are on the road away from home. So again, those per diems, it gives you that $80. So, if you've been on the road quite a few days, it can really add up. And in our experience, the $80 is more than what you are going to incur expenses on the road. Most truckers will eat in their trucks, are not going out and spending a full $80 on food when they are on the road. Now, I've had one truck driver that actually swore up and down he was spending closer to $120 a day on the road. And I went, how? Well, when I've got to stop at night, wherever I'm at, I call and do Uber Eats and have them bring it out to the truck stop, no matter how far away it is from a city. Okay, now I understand. You're eating pretty well, but you're calling and having somebody bring you food every single night that you are on the road. That can get expensive. Make sure you have receipts for that, because the IRS might come back and audit that just for the per diem side. So you better make sure you've got receipts and a full accounting of all of that for you in your business. So if you're tracking per diems, make sure you're tracking those days that are on the road. There's some good apps for that, to be able to track per diems and other things out there. You can use those and track the per diems, and then you've got information. Now, if you own your truck, maybe you just purchased a truck, you can deduct depreciation. And basically your deduction, the decrease in value over time, or you can take an immediate first year deduction on assets purchased and placed in service during the year. Now, what I caution you on this is really look at how you're going to take depreciation. If you just spent $80,000 or $100,000 on a new tractor, and you go to take full depreciation and it takes your net income down to zero or below, well, is it really doing you that good? Granted, it just saved you, maybe Social Security and federal income tax and partially state income tax, because states will have different rules for depreciation. And you may not be able to take the bonus or the federal depreciation. You got to follow the state rules for depreciation. So you're having to weigh some of these things out to make sure that you've got it right. But if you're taking depreciation and you are in a 0% tax bracket, well, you just wasted depreciation. Especially maybe you were an S corp, or maybe you were a partnership, and you were able to use other methods to limit how much Social Security and Medicare you're paying. You've got to look at it to make sure it's making sense. So yes, you may have eliminated 15.3% tax on some of that money, but you also got it down to a zero tax rate. And you ran a lot of that depreciation under that time period and under that rate. Well, it seems like a waste when next year you might be in a 25% tax bracket or a 20% tax bracket and 15.3%. You're now at, 35,000, almost 40,000 or 40% tax, 35% tax. Now that depreciation is worth a heck of a lot more in the next year than it was in the current year. So things we've got to look at and go with, from there. So you've got to have a good preparer. You got to have somebody knowledgeable in the industry, and you've got to be able to have somebody that can make sense of it with you so that you can strategize your taxes, your finances to make your business a bigger success than where you are today. It's things like that becomes extremely, extremely important. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to talk about insurance and other deductions that you can be taking as an owner operator, as a small business man as well for your business. And we'll do that right after this break.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. As an owner-operator, you already spend too much time away from your family. Stop spending time doing paperwork. Go to truckertaxtools.com, a solution built specifically for truckers. Truckertaxtools.com makes your life run smoothly. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, welcome back. I have a great question here from Sage. And if you got questions, hey, feel free to send them in through Facebook. Don't forget to ever connect with us at taxtalk4u.com. You can follow us over there. All of our podcasts are up on iHeart, Spotify, you name the different podcast sites, we are on it. And then, of course, every Monday here, 10 a.m. Eastern time on W4CYradio.com. Or you can connect at Trucker Tax Tools, truckertaxtools.com, Trucker Tax Tools on Facebook. This one came through our Facebook page from Sage. And really enjoy your soapbox. We agree that everybody should be in one system. Can you help explain why we're not all on one system? Well, this is me guessing, but the kings and queens in Congress and our president way back when congressmen started getting more than just a little bit of pay, decided they could raid our treasury and take pay for themselves, and then rewarded everybody working for the federal government into their separate pension system to give government employees who supposedly were making less than the common man out there could be making in industry, a separate pension system that was paying at a higher rate than Social Security or Medicare out there. So where you and I fall as the ordinary people, we work to support the federal government, the federal employees, and their pension system that drains our government of valuable resources. I always believe the federal government should stick to what's in the Constitution and not overstep its bounds. The rest should fall to the states. That being said, we've seen more and more of it falling back to the states, which is a great thing under this president. We've seen a lot of things come out where illegals are getting much more money than our veterans, which I think is a sad state of affairs in this country. I think it's more of helping people here, and it should be more of people helping people, families helping themselves, than relying on the federal government for handouts and everything going forward from there. No, I don't run for political office. I never wanted to, never will. I enjoy what I do, helping truckers every single day in their business to make them a success and find ways to help you as an owner operator, as a business owner, reduce your tax burden across the board, whether it's federal or state or even local in some cases, to pay the minimum amount of taxes allowed by law. And that's the fun challenge. The other challenge that we take on and we accept is fighting the IRS when you have a tax problem. So you owe the IRS. Taxation Solutions Tax Relief does the things that need to be done to reduce that tax burden, fight to either get you on the lowest amount payment plan, get an offer in compromise, get you tax relief, get you out of the crosshairs of the IRS and off the burden of the IRS, and get you back into compliance. But compliance means paying the minimum amount you can possibly pay by law. And when you have somebody being able to help you take advantage of that, then you, as the owner operator, as a business owner, as a taxpayer, can feel better about themselves and reduce that tax burden. Now, the other thing, since I'm on my soapbox, is term limits. If term limits is good enough for the president, it's good enough for every member of Congress. And it does not mean move from House to Senate. It means whether you're in the House or whether you're in the Senate, you should have 2 terms and be done. Get out of government, get back to ordinary life, go out there and live the same way you and I do, and feed your family from, what we're doing, or do it like it is in Texas. Congress only meets every couple of years, and you've got to get things done. And then Congress gets special sessions, and you get a stipend to be able to go up and go vote and do the things that need to be done. It shouldn't be in Congress in session, 24/7, 365 days a year. And then, well, actually it's only about 200 days a year, and the rest seems to be vacation, and you still get paid. Give them a daily rate. When you're there working, fine, this is what you make. Otherwise, return back to your state, return back to your city and work, do a job so that you can relate to what you're actually passing and understand how these rules affect businesses, affect individuals right there. If you're subject to Obamacare, just like you and I are, you would understand it doesn't work. It's expensive, regardless of whether they put in, more incentives. If you're making a decent amount of money and you're self-employed, you can't afford healthcare because it becomes so doggone expensive. You can't pay for it. And when a family of 4 has to pay $2,500 to $3,000 a month and still have a $10,000 deductible, it's not healthcare to me. It's just a ripoff. Okay, back to saving money on taxes. Hey, insurance premiums, those are deductible. Business liability, cargo. Health insurance premiums can be deductible for self-employed. There are ways to make things deductible if you own a business and maybe you employ your spouse. Hey, there are things that we need to do to try to find ways to make things deductible for you and your businesses. Your license, your fees, includes costs for your CDL, vehicle registration, IFTA, fuel taxes, mileage tax. All these things are deductible for your business. tolls, parking, scales. You need to be able to prove those things. A lot of those come on your settlement statements if you're leased on. But if you're an owner or operator with your own authority, then you got to make sure you're tracking these things. And, maybe it's through the bank statements. Maybe it's through, one of the fuel cards or Comdata cards. These things we can track through and see that these things are there. You want to keep your documentation organized, maintain and fine tune your records. Great bookkeeping will help you maintain all of your income and expenses, for the year. Keep your data from your ELD log. Get it downloaded. A lot of these things only save data for about 6 months. So every quarter, you should be getting the data downloaded to you so you can use that ELD also to prove what? Per diems. How about that? So you can use your ELD data to prove your per diems. You keep it organized, keep it in a safe place. You should keep it for at least 3 years in case of audit. Now, if you've got, fixed assets on there, like your tractor, your trailers, you should keep them for, those receipts longer. You should be keeping your tax documentation for at least 7 years, so that you have, the backup in those records as well. After 7 years, you can, destroy it. Now, if you've got some fixed assets you bought and depreciated and then everything, so you may be holding on to an asset longer, you may need to keep a return or two prior to those 7 years, so that you have proof of depreciation and stuff on those fixed assets. If you get a 1099, you want to make sure you're checking them. You want to confirm from each broker or carrier that paid you, over $600 during the year. Those, along with your own records, be able to substantiate, did you get that money? I've seen wrong 1099s come in, overstated 1099s come in. Then you have to go back to that carrier or that broker and talk to them about what was actually paid. Be ready to prove what income you received from that carrier, so that they're not overstating your income and you're not going to have issue or problem. Another thing for truck drivers, make sure you filed and paid your heavy highway vehicle use tax, Form 2290. So if your truck weighs over 55,000 pounds or more, this is an annual tax due by August 31st. You've got to do that. But that fee, that tax, is deductible. Now, we go through a lot more than that. This is just touching like the icing on the cake. You want to find everything that makes up the cake, all the ingredients that went into it to make it the best and take advantage of every deduction. Cell phones are ordinary and necessary business expenses. You've got to be able to communicate. If you're paying for internet services and stuff for your truck, you got to be able to take all those things. So you're looking for ordinary and necessary. Boy, time flies when we're having fun. And, even when we're talking taxes and trucking, it's a lot of fun to us and we like saving you money. But as we come to the close of the show, one thing we want to tell you to do, connect with us on Facebook. Go to Trucker Tax Tools, go to truckertaxtools.com, click with us over there. Give us a call at 877-966-2477. Let's get set up doing bookkeeping and taxes for you to save you as much money as possible every single year that we do for hundreds of truckers. Now, we're here Mondays at every 10 a.m. every Monday on W4CY Radio. You should be too. And if you're an owner operator, small business owner, just want to pay less in taxes, if you miss a show, you can connect with us at taxtalk4you.com. Follow us over there. Get over to our podcast. Our podcasts have all the great information that you need to help run your small business and be a great business owner, reduce your taxes, and save money everywhere. Hey, as always, have a God-blessed and very glorious week. enjoy what you do. Enjoy when you get home and spending time with your family. Give them a hug. Tell them you love them. And then tell them, hey, you're going to be here listening to Tax Talk for You on W4CY Radio every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're standing at a fuel pump with other truckers, tell them to go to Tax Talk for You, connect and follow us over there, or follow us on Facebook so you never miss an episode. We will see you next week, Monday, 10 a.m. Again, have a God bless, glorious week, and be thankful for this great country and a wonderful God we have. We'll see you next week.
Are you an individual or business that wants to understand taxes and how they affect you? Are you looking for specific tax advice for self-employed, business owners, and truckers? Are you behind on taxes and your bookkeeping? Are you dealing with the IRS and ready to have some relief? Then you need Tax Talk for You, hosted by tax and trucker expert Barry G. Fowler, EA. Tune in 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Monday right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Don't forget to check this and past episodes at taxtalkforyou.com. See you next week at W4CY.com.